All right. It looks like everyone's admitted to the info session. It's 6:32, so we'll go ahead and start. My name's Nick Hancock. I'm the Associate Dean and Bridge Program Director at Five Branches University. So just a quick orientation of what we're going to do here this Wednesday evening at about 6:30 p.m. This is an informative presentation on Five Branches University's doctoral completion program. And here at Five Branches, we call it the Bridge Program. That means that this is a program that's designed for people who already have a master's level degree or equivalency in traditional Chinese medicine. Before we go forward with the presentation, it looks like we're getting a few more people trickling in. Can everyone hear me? Tom, can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you.
Just quick check. And then also I wanted to make an announcement. This info session is going to be recorded. And we're going to use it for our marketing purposes and also just to help inform other prospective students like yourself. So if you don't want to be included, you're encouraged to turn off your camera. There'll be no problem at all if you want to turn your camera off. So we got one more person admitted.
Yeah, and please, if you have questions, wait for, there's going to be a few periods. We'll do open question time. You can type them in. But as you guys put them in the chats, as it keeps on rolling, it's kind of hard to stay on top of it.
This means my camera's off, right? The X over the video.
Correct. Yeah. So just hold off on the questions. And of course, if anybody can't stay for the duration of this, you can always reach out to me as the admissions advisor for the program, and we'll set up a time to talk one-on-one.
Great. Thanks, Tom. That's Tom Dicklin. He's our admissions associate in the Bridge program. Probably many of you have already interacted with him. So just once again, this info session is going to be recorded. And it's an informative presentation about Five Branches University's doctoral completion program, and we call it the Bridge program. So once again, it's a program that's designed to take people who have a master's degree or equivalency in traditional Chinese medicine, or there's a lot of different degree titles that are that equivalency of a master's degree. But basically, you have a master's degree in Chinese medicine, and you're looking for the doctoral standard, what would be the DTCM or DAC or equivalent. This is a program that's designed 100% online and available asynchronously, and we're going to talk about what that means. And it's designed to take exactly those people who have that master's degree and want to go to that doctoral degree. Now, we're not talking about a DAOM. We're talking about a DTCM or a DAC equivalency. So if any of you have questions about the DAOM, you can hold those to the end. Like Tom said, we'll have a question and answer session, and hopefully we can actually help everybody in this info session. So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to talk just for a few minutes about this program, give some rough overview, nuts and bolts details about it. I'm going to share the outline of curriculum for this program so that you'll have something to look at in terms of names of courses, hours, units, more details, stuff like that. And then finally, I'm going to give you all a short demonstration on how to access our learning management system, Moodle. That's where all of your classes are going to be available. 100% online, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This doctoral completion program was specifically designed for people who are already licensed, as I already said, and are probably in full-time practice or some kind of full-time engagement, and may otherwise have other responsibilities like family or just very active and engaged lives. This program is designed for those people who would only have maybe 2 to 3 hours interspersed throughout the day, maybe in the evenings, maybe early in the morning, maybe late at night, in order to access their online courses, to view pre-recorded lectures, to interact with assignments, and interact with our learning management system. If you only have a few hours, maybe interspersed throughout the day, then this program could potentially be the perfect fit for you. Because it's developed asynchronously. Okay, that's a key word for this program. It's asynchronous. You're going to hear us say it over and over again. Okay, so asynchronous means all your coursework, all your assignments, including lectures, articles, even question and answer forums, forums where you interact with faculty members. They're all pre-designed and preloaded online, available for you to interact with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The way the material is designed to be implemented, meaning kind of delivered to you as a student, is in chunks we call modules. Okay, so each class, let's say your research class, which ends up being about reading and communicating about research, not writing or participating in research, but we talk about that later. Your research class has interspersed throughout it, let's say 8 modules over the course of 15 weeks. So module 1 might be an introduction to the course lasting 1 week. You'll get an announcement when it's open. You'll have access to all the materials. Your faculty will introduce all those materials when the module opens. And you'll see when we look at the curriculum, I'll show you a sample syllabus as well. All of the dates for the opening of modules, assignments, anything relevant to your coursework is available on the day 1 of course beginning. So you can effectively plan your entire schedule and figure out exactly when you're going to have time to do what work to make sure that this is kind of easily facilitated. We generally have a very high satisfaction rate with our students regarding the availability of our materials and the feasibility of this program, regardless of their busy schedules. So that's one of the really strong points of this program. So it's asynchronous, it's 100% online, and we're very flexible in terms of how we deliver the material. You always need to be in touch with your faculty member first. If for whatever reason, maybe you don't have internet access or some emergency happens and you need some extension on an assignment or something like that, just make sure you reach out to your faculty member. Because it's asynchronous and 100% online, we have quite a bit of flexibility when we work with students. So the way this program was designed and kind of its intent was to bridge that gap, and that's why it's called the Bridge program, from the master's to the doctoral. The focus of the content is integrative. So we got to interpret that integrative focus at 5 branches uniquely, and every school has their own opportunity to interpret what is mandated in terms of accreditation standards. So accrediting body said this program needs to be about integrative medicine. So at 5 branches, what we chose to do was really build a program that gave TCM practitioners tools using the lens of TCM and the vocabulary of TCM to empower them to interact with, communicate with Western providers and practitioners and patients who come in with Western diagnoses, who are taking Western pharmaceuticals, maybe who have Western labs. We're trying to build those skills to allow our students and practitioners to really showcase the value of Chinese medicine in a variety of integrative settings that are opening up for people to be employed in. So it's important, I say that up front, is we really tried to stay true to our roots as TCM practitioners, even though the subject matter is going to be mostly aimed at integrative medicine, so the interaction between Chinese medicine and Western biomedicine. At this point, I'm actually just going to transition into sharing my screen and giving you all a quick look at the curriculum. Okay, can you all see what I've shared? Does it look good, Tom? Okay. Okay, great. And you can all still hear me. Excellent. Okay, so here's an overview of the curriculum. The way we've designed it to be delivered is actually over the course of 3 terms. And this is exactly what your schedule will look like if you choose to take a 3-term track through this program. Now, there is some flexibility in terms of the order that you take these courses and your timeline for graduation, which Tom's going to talk about later. But it was originally designed to be run in 3 terms and then can be run in 2 if need be. You can see, if we just look really quickly at the color coding, we've got a clinical experience course in each term. And we're going to talk about what those courses are and what they mean. How can you do asynchronous clinic? It's a great question, right? And I'll answer that question. And we also have a mixture of research focus, lab interpretation focus, so like applying lab test results for TCM practitioners. This class is taught by somebody who's a functional medicine expert and also a licensed acupuncturist. His name is Dr. Jim Chaltis, and we're really lucky to have him. And he teaches our students how to order and interpret functional medicine labs, in addition to common Western labs that come in that we see on a regular basis, how they interact with our TCM diagnoses, and kind of just to give us some quick tools and skills to efficiently and expediently add some extra services for our patients that we can use in clinic kind of on day one. So we've got labs, research, systems-based medicine. Our systems-based medicine course, you might think like, well, isn't that mostly statistics about healthcare? And it's true that it is, but the way that we interpreted this coursework was to give Chinese medicine practitioners kind of a detailed view of where we fit into the healthcare system and the possible opportunities for us based on our license and our scope, and how we can leverage our position to kind of the best advantage that we could have in the current field. So again, we have what sounds like maybe quite academic subjects, but we interpreted them along the lines of coursework that should be really meaningful to practicing acupuncturists. There's more. This lab analysis and imaging class is more like advanced Western lab diagnostic techniques and reading Western labs. So it averages your first two terms, you've got between 6 and 6.5 units. Your third term is 4 units. What I tell all of our prospective students is to plan 10 to 12 hours of work a week, okay, consistently. If you can fit 10 to 12 hours of work a week into your schedule, then this program is not only doable, but you'll be set up for success in this program. And I say 10 to 12 hours per week, rather than like 20 hours one week and 0 hours the next one, just so you remain consistently engaged with your coursework. And so you don't lose track of kind of where you are, because we're asynchronous. It means there's extra distance between our teachers and students and our administrators and students. So if we have consistent engagement with each other and we communicate on a regular basis, it makes this program run a lot more smoothly. So that's something I also like to say in this presentation. Okay, so mixture of academic and clinic. What is the clinical experience in the Bridge? How can you do clinic asynchronously, right? Because most of our experience in our master's degree programs was you were in a physical location, shadowing a practitioner, maybe treating patients yourself in a variety of different settings, right? This is not that. This is not necessarily shadowing or working in a clinic, but this is interacting with pre-recorded lectures, patient practitioner interactions, case studies, forums where your clinical faculty members will be asking you questions. Right now, we've got Dr. Feng Li Lan running our clinic in the Bridge, and she brings her awesome experience, both Chinese and Western trained. And her focus right now is women's health, pain, and mental health and emotional disorders. So those are spread between the 3 clinics. One of them's pain focused, one of them's women's health, and then the third one is mental health, psycho-emotional disorders. She uses a variety of techniques to teach the students, including the ones that I already mentioned, like, again, pre-recorded lectures, forums, regular assignments, case studies. There's also some forums where students will need to interact with each other. So we want to enhance your opportunity to not only learn from your faculty members, but learn from your fellow students, because we tend to attract a very diverse student body, right? So we almost every term, we've got people who've been practicing 30 years and we've got people who are getting their license tomorrow, right? So in that environment, we try and create opportunities for everyone to interact with each other and kind of reflect also on the evolving state of our field. So anyway, there's a small portion of clinic where you are asked to interact directly with a Western biomedicine practitioner. And those are called our direct experience hours. There's a limited number of them per term. Our goal with these hours is to encourage you to interact with practitioners in your local environments where you're hopefully practicing, and open up and establish relationships that could possibly lead to referral relationships. Now, if you already work in an office where there's a naturopath, even a chiropractor, anybody who is licensed and practicing in Western biomedicine and has at least a doctoral degree or higher, who you're interacting with, that'd be DOs, MDs, any specialists, many orthopedists, anybody with those credentials that you're interacting with over patient cases, we need those hours documented. And there's a small number of them per term. There's only 10 hours per term that we need in direct experience. All the rest of these 45 hours happen online. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do before our question and answer session really quickly is just demo how to access Moodle, okay, our learning management system. Okay, so the website we go to is de.5branches.edu. And don't worry, you don't need to remember any of this now, because when you enroll in the program, you're going to get a lot of correspondence from Tom, from our student services, about how to access Moodle, how to prepare yourself, the exact timelines and dates, when classes are going to open, when tuition is due, what's necessary for you to enroll and engage all this course material. So again, you don't need to remember any of this. I'm just doing it to show you what things look like from the user end. You go de.5branches.edu. Every single time you have to click FBU School Gmail. Every time. You never log in any other way. Now, mine's preloaded with my 5 Branches Gmail account. So it brings me to my dashboard as the director. This might look really small. I'm going to zoom in once we get to a classroom. I always go to Site Home, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to look at the orientation classroom for this term's new students. Okay, so this is exactly what a classroom looks like in Moodle. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit with the hopes that you can actually read what I'm going to show you. Does that look better? Okay, so this is an example of the classroom, the modules, the interface, and it's really, really straightforward. That's what I want you all to see. It's just plain text with some graphics, and what we've got is these chunks of content. Each one of these is a module. So for example, this DAC DTCM bridge orientation, right here are all the contents available. And it looks like these haven't been opened yet. But so those will be shown to the students. Here's another example of another module, right? So with the orientation, we release them all at once, but in your other classrooms, what you'd find is dates trailing along the end of each module to let you know when it was going to be open and then when your assignments are due. This is actually exactly where I got the curriculum that I shared with you earlier. So we always have the students interact with each other through forums, get to know each other. There's an opportunity to upload a video if you want to send a video of yourself to all your fellow students. We also have an address from Ron Zeidman and Joanna Zhao, our president and dean. And so you can see this is exactly what your lecture video player is going to look like. So this is an example.
Hi, I'm Ron Zeidman, the
you're gonna
co-founder and president at 5 Branches.
You'll have videos like that in every module and every class. Now I'm going to take you to, let's look at a course from this term. And we're just going to open up a syllabus so I can give you an idea of, again, kind of what our syllabi look like, how organized they are, and the ease of planning as a student in this program. Okay, so here's Jim Chaltis' lab test class. Let's go to his syllabus. We do them all in PDF. That kind of preserves the integrity of the documents over time. So the PDF reader I've got's Acrobat, but whatever PDF reader you have, you've got all of the things you would expect, right? Required text, course description, course learning outcomes, assignments broken down by percentage, an explanation for each type of assignment. Okay. How to do evals for your faculty. And you'll see here, let me see, I'll zoom in here again. You'll see here, we've got the module outlined, right? Course introduction, blood sugar panels, blood sugar assignment, blood sugar quiz. All assignments due this term, it was 1/22/23. So every module is going to have the same day of the week and the same time for every assignment due. So it's really easy to plan for. And again, they're all announced from day one. And we really pride ourselves on running kind of a very tight academic schedule and making sure all my faculty are just excellently trained. The Bridge program, I can't speak highly enough about our faculty. And they really enjoy interacting with the students. I mean, every term they tell me stories about how much they learn from our students too. So that's an example of a syllabus. Now you've seen inside of a classroom, you've seen a breakdown of units and hours and basically the names of our courses. I'm sure you have many questions. And at this point in the presentation, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it over to the wonderful Tom Dicklin.
Thank you, Nick. But before we move on to admissions related information, does anybody have any specific programmatic course question? You know, kind of what Nick covered is the platform that students are going to be using, are using right now. But if you have any questions on individual courses, what's covered, academic load questions, and that would be a good time to ask that, and Nick could definitely answer that pretty quickly.
Can I have a question? My name is Charles.
Oh, sure. Hi, Charles.
Hi, Charles.
Hi. Nick, I just have a quick question. Where is the homework assignment requirement? Is it in the video model? Like in the video, after you listen, you watch, then they say, okay, your assignment is what?
Yes. So typically, every assignment is going to come with an explanation in text form. So we'll have like a text explanation that gives like a rubric and how to complete the assignment, what the expectations are. In some cases, we'll even give you examples. Like I know in the systems-based medicine class, the final project, she has many examples to show you. So the requirements for the assignments kind of vary by from class to class, but they're always communicated to you first. And there's usually like a little, there's usually an attachment, a text attachment that will have a whole explanation.
Thank you.
Of course.
And then Jody had a question about testing. So I'm assuming that's the assessment process, whether there's quizzes, exams, written papers. You know, usually those questions also are on the forefront of prospects' minds.
Okay, and I'm going to take a stab at answering. I mean, Jody, do you want to give us any more context for that question? Would allow me to go back answering. Oh, okay. So here's what I would say in context to the statement that you graduated in 2000, right? So because the focus of this program is not TCM, it's integrative medicine, we're not going to be doing like lengthy multiple choice exams on like what a purple tongue body means versus simultaneous chills and fever, or like, you know, textbook state board. It's not going to be testing you on like textbook TCM stuff. So your tests, in some classes, they're going to be multiple choice. There's not a tremendous amount of tests in the sense that like the assignments and assessments. I think a few of our instructors use testing, like multiple choice tests, but mostly it's like written projects assignments, collaborative projects like a forum. There's a lot of assignments where what you do is you have to interact with each other, share your opinions, for example, of a patient presentation or a case, right? What's the diagnosis? How is it? What are the, do like a Western differential on the diagnosis? You know, something like that, and then interact with each other and comment on each other and what the faculty had to say. And those will be participation points. So there's a lot of that. There's written assignments, but it's not like really multiple choice test heavy, if that kind of answers your question. I wouldn't worry. We've designed it specifically so that, again, people who graduated like 30 years ago, you know, have been in practice since the early 90s or even the 80s. We were designed it with those people in mind, and we know how much our field has changed. So again, the content is integrative focused. It's not really TCM focused.
And then Amelia has her hand raised, but there was another question I just want to get to really quick from P.
Sure.
P asked, do we use Gmail to log in? No EDU email. So basically each student that's accepted, so there's a formal application process. We'll go over that shortly. There's an enrollment, a registration process, and for all new students, a new student orientation. Usually that takes place a few days, maybe a week prior to the start of class, or when classes become available or go live. At that time, you'll be given a new university email address. That's going to be your access to this Moodle portal. So what Nick showed you doesn't mean this is open to any of you right now. You just need a Gmail. You have to be formally accepted into the program. You go through the registration enrollment process, go through the orientation process, and then you're going to get another kind of view of all that. Time to ask some questions, go back and forth, make sure that there's complete clarity. And then you're going to have access probably before classes are available to start looking at that platform, okay? If you have additional questions on that after this info session, please feel free to reach out to me. We can also maybe get you in contact with Nick. What I can say is the platform runs really smooth. We definitely want to answer all your questions, but if you have long-lasting concerns about what it's going to be like to interact with that, usually once the program starts, those quickly kind of go to the wayside. So Amelia, you had some questions or question?
I do. My name is Amalia, and so I understand that it's going to be integrative medicine focused, functional medicine, Western medicine, but is the class that was called research using TCM and biomedical findings, is there anywhere that we're going to go over or talk about TCM patterns or points or herbs or anything like that?
The research class, so we'll start with explaining the research class. Research class is kind of meeting two big goals or needs. One of them is just accessing research databases, how to read research articles, how to kind of communicate what's meaningful from a research article and use it in the context of patient communication or communication with other practitioners. That's one goal. The other goal of the research class is to connect our own students with the research that's being done on TCM now, which is like exploding, right? So that our students can communicate about research that's happening in the field of TCM, but then also just all research in general. And the communication tools would be basically the same. Herbs, points. So it's interesting you asked this question. Many, let's say, I think all of our faculty have dual training, Western and TCM. So you'll be talking a lot about herbs and points relative to diagnoses in your clinical experience classes. That's going to be like the main focus, is actually picking apart the differential diagnosis. The teacher's going to be proposing treatments, or you may observe a treatment the teacher does, and then you'll be able to ask the question, why not, what else? What if the presentation had been like that, then would you have done this? And that'll all happen in the context of like forums and text communication. So you'll actually have a continuous record of all your interactions with the faculty member and your other students, which we find to be really rich learning environment actually for TCM. So even though so how is that integrative, Nick? Well, the scope of the clinical presentations are all integrative. Like the practitioner is going to do a complete TCM differential and Western differential, and then show how they relate, and then a TCM treatment on top. So you could talk about how any of those things are interacting. If some students may be really focusing on the TCM side, and that's fine, and other students may be focusing on the Western side, but the scope of the course is integrative. The other place I'd say where there's actually a weird opportunity to get some TCM knowledge from like an elder practitioner is actually here in the lab analysis and imaging class. And I know that sounds strange because you're thinking lab analysis and imaging, that's going to be talking about x-rays, all the imaging tests, lab tests, and overviewing Western biomedicine, right? But the funny thing is the person who's teaching this class, his name is Dr. Robert Yao, and he is Western trained, and he works in a Western setting right now. But in the past, he also has very traditional classical TCM herbal training and comes from the Jingfang Institute. And so has a lot of deep knowledge and experience using TCM herbs to treat in integrative settings. And he's so generous with his content. I mean, and he really spends a lot of time with our students. So I guess, so just to, say again, the focus is integrative, but we're really coming at it from a standpoint of being TCM practitioners. Rather than just throwing Western knowledge at you, we're actually using TCM vocabulary, using TCM theory. And so that's how we're looking at all this stuff. And that's a major focus of our program, and probably a distinguishing factor between it and others, which we're really proud of and was very intentional for us.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, that you do the differential diagnosis in both and then blend them and figure out which means what. So that's awesome. Thank you for drilling down on that. That was really great.
I'm glad it was helpful.
And I want to add, anybody with a master's in acupuncture with no or limited herbal training, there is no requirement for that herbal training for this program. So what Nick just mentioned, then when you're kind of in those settings, then the herbal part would be something that you wouldn't be engaging in. Of course you could, but there's no requirement for that. So please don't worry about that if you are, working as an acupuncturist without that herbal kind of background. Any other questions for Nick? Okay.
Looks like an application deadline question, Tom. So maybe we can transition to admission.
Yeah, let's transition. Okay, so my name is Tom. I'm the admissions advisor for this program. Some of you have already been working with me. If you haven't, please feel free to reach out at any time. I want to answer all your questions, help you out. We're looking at starting a new cohort this summer. So it'll be our summer 2023 term. Classes will be going live Monday, May 8th. The application deadline is about a month prior to that, which is Monday, April 10th. So we have plenty of time. Please reach out if you have any questions about that application deadline. There is some limited flexibility. We have a lot to do behind the scenes. So as we work with students, and again, as we go through the enrollment, registration, orientation process, we're doing our best to make sure that everybody is ready to go prior to classes going live on that Monday, May 8th, okay? So if by chance you have hiccups, if there's obstacles for you to complete your application, reach out to me. We'll work out something, I promise, as long as you're putting in due diligence. We'll try to be as flexible as we can. It just gets more kind of stressful. It gets kind of crazier as we get closer to those deadlines. So please be aware of that. And again, there is a lot of behind the scenes stuff with tech and stuff that we have to get worked out, okay? The application process does require official transcripts for your undergraduate coursework. The accreditation board considers this as an entry-level program, and as such, even though it's a doctorate level program, it's an entry-level doctorate program. you do need to submit your official undergraduate transcripts. The bare bones requirement for undergraduate coursework is 90 semester units or more. You can always send me unofficial versions of that to get a pre-screening. Be happy to do that. And if anybody has had international education outside of the United States, that will also need to be evaluated by an agency that specializes in the evaluation of international transcripts. It's a third-party process so that it leaves out any kind of possible discrepancies in what you've done, okay? And then for the master's degree, there is also a requirement of a master's degree in TCM, Oriental Medicine, or this, science of Oriental Medicine, or a master's degree in acupuncture, or the possibility of equivalency. Okay, some of you might have gone to programs a while ago. So there's equivalent programs before they actually turned into full-fledged master's programs. So those will also work, but I'm going to want to see your official or unofficial transcripts for a screening process just to make sure everything lines up with that. Also, please be advised or aware that a lot of transcripts, or I should say some transcripts, don't offer the hours completed. The courses that you've been taking are listed in units or credit hours and so forth, but the exact hours that you've completed, didactic plus clinic, I will need that. So if those are not listed on the transcripts, I will then be asking you to reach out to the registrar at your former school to get an email sent to you so I can have that on file. Okay, it's the easiest way for us to fit you into this whole process. You can consider your enrollment or your admissions process into this program as almost like you transferring in your existing master's degree into our entry-level doctorate degree that's up and running. And as a transfer student, we need to see certain data to know how that fits in and so forth, okay? There's also some additional things like a general biology class, chemistry class, psychology class that I'm going to be screening for. I will be looking at all your transcripts to see if anything fits into that. If by chance they are not present in any way, we'll be working out a waiver form to see what else you've done for those competencies. And so far, we're pretty successful with the waiver process. So please don't be worried about that, but those are additional things that we'll probably be talking one-on-one with once I see your information. The total cost of the program, which is usually the next question, is $8,505. If any of you are a Five Branches alumni, you do get a 20% discount. All that information is on our website. For any student that can't afford their tuition at the beginning of each term or prefers to do a monthly payment plan, we do have a monthly payment plan option, which takes your monthly, or I should say, your term's total tuition. And you can see from Nick's handout that your first term is 6.5 units, your second term is 6 units, and your last term is 4 units. So incrementally, it does get a little bit cheaper tuition-wise. Your total tuition per term is usually due at the beginning of each term. And if you prefer the monthly payment plan, then it simply breaks down that total tuition for that term over 4 months. Okay, and there is a $15 a month fee for that. And then you'll be working with the accounting department for each of those payments, whether it's going to be credit card or check or whatnot. Okay. There are some term track options with which Nick already mentioned. The program was designed as a 3-term, 1-year process, kind of a week or two shy of 1 year. That's kind of preferred. That's kind of how it was designed. However, students usually have the option to spread it out over 5 terms, so kind of close to 2 years. And then occasionally we also offer a 2-term track option. So I can't guarantee that there'll be a 2-term track option. We will look at that depending on how many request that. It's a little bit intense. We've had a few students do that, so we're still gathering data on how that experience was for them. But I'm pretty sure that a 3-term and a 5-term track will be offered at all times as options to you guys. Okay. What else to say? I think that's kind of it. Anybody that might be interested in a later start time. So far, we've been offering this program 3 times a year. There seems to be enough interest to maintain that. Please be advised that at any time, if interest isn't as present as it normally is, there might be a term that we do skip. So if anybody doesn't want to start this summer, we are still looking at starting another cohort this fall. If anybody applies for this summer and then decides that it's not a good time to start, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, defer. There's a few different options there to have your start date be at a later term, okay? I think that's kind of it. Any questions for me on the admission side?
I have two.
Yeah.
The 2-term track would be roughly, what is 7 months, 8 months, something like that?
Each term is, yeah, about 4 months, so about 8 months, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And again,
And
yeah, I wouldn't be too attached to that, but it's possible.
okay, just
Yeah.
curious. Yeah, I think the 1 year sounds pretty good. And the 3 terms, each term is 4 months.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And then the breaks, in between each term, there is a break. So between, right now, we're in what we call the spring term. It's winter, but it's like a Chinese New Year spring. Between the spring term and the summer term, there's 2 weeks of break. And then between the summer term and fall term, again, 2 weeks of break. And then between the fall term and the next spring term, over that Christmas period, the holiday period, there's 3 weeks of break. If anybody needs additional time, so kind of Nick brought up how this asynchronized program is operating on a weekly basis, or a module, which is usually 1 week of lecture and assignments. Usually students, if they need additional flexibility, you can reach out to your instructors. Let's say you have tech issues, there's health issues or vacation plans. As long as you communicate and there's a clear understanding of what's needed, it usually works out. Now, if you need 3 or 4 or 5 weeks off on a regular basis, then it gets tricky, and I can't guarantee that that can be, those needs can be met. Usually when that kind of pops up, it's usually best that you wait for a period of time where you don't have as much commitments, and you can jump into the program a little bit more full force, okay? There was a question if FBU, Five Branch University, is a nonprofit. I believe we are not a nonprofit at this time. At least not the university structure. I think we have a nonprofit kind of portion of the university, but I believe the education part is for profit.
Would the program qualify for the 50 CEUs that we need as licensed acupuncturists to renew our?
Good question. Good question. So there's a few angles to this. One is we do have 50 hours. Well, yeah, actually 2 classes of 45 hours. So there's plenty of hours. I believe all the classes work for the national certification process, just because of the level of education that it is. I believe we worked that out a few years ago, Nick. For California, there's plenty of hours. However, California regulates online education for CEUs. So I think the bottom line is you would only be applying 25 of the total 90. Okay, now please be advised, you're only going to get the CEU hours once those courses are completed. So we've had a few students that signed up and thought they'd get the CEUs right away. And that's not the case. You've got to complete the course, grades have to be submitted and so forth, and then you get the CEUs that you can apply to the recertification process. But California is going to limit that to 25 total online, and then you would have to do 25 in person. Unless they're still trying to figure out, COVID related situations. I know with COVID, they're a little bit more flexible with some stuff. I don't believe that's still the case. So I would kind of, I would think that it's about 25 at this point. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. There was a question at the end of the term, you will get your CEU certificates after your grades have been submitted and reported. That is correct. Yeah. Oh, that was Nick. Sorry.
That was
That was a recap. So, any other questions? Yeah, so again, the 5-term track schedule, basically, so what Nick showed you for the schedule, those classes would be stretched out, right? And that was just an example. The classes that students jump into, it does change a bit each and every cohort based on how the program is running along. Okay, so what you could say is on average for the 1-term or 1 year program is about 3 classes per term. For the 5-term, you're going to have a couple of just 2 classes. So it gets stretched out. And if you reach out to me, I can definitely send you an estimate or kind of a bird's eye view of what that possibly could look like. A question from Jody. Besides transcripts, application requires recommendations from local doctoral level professionals. You do need 1 letter of reference. So Anybody that's applying with their online portal, please be advised that the statement of purpose and the letter of reference is not included on that list, but those will still be needed. If you've reached out to me and I've sent you an email in response, that often has documents attached. On the second page of the green application form, there is a checklist. And of course, all the supporting documents are attached to that email as well, such as the letter of reference form. So one letter of reference is needed. It doesn't necessarily have to be from a TCM professional. Ideally, it's somebody that knows you in a professional capacity. So it could be somebody that knows you from a work environment. It could be somebody that knows you with a long history. So maybe like a neighbor in a professional way, if that makes sense. Maybe not just a friend of the family or somebody that you're close to, but somebody that can vouch for you more professionally. Or it could also be from an instructor, it can be from the academic side of what you've experienced. Okay. What we don't want to see is friends and family, spouses, parents, that type of thing. And usually when I receive those, then we do ask that you submit a new one, kind of based on the criteria that we want to see. Okay. I will send my email address here or contact stuff. 1 second. Why is this not loading? Okay, so there you have it. British Department of Admissions. There's my email address. That's my phone number and extension. There was a question, and this question usually comes up. It's maybe why Nick is smiling. What time does class start, right? Because I'm living on the East Coast. So, just a heads up, we have students kind of around the world. We have a student now in Ethiopia. We've had a few students in Europe, a couple in China, I think South America. Some students also travel as they kind of go into the program. So it's fully online, it's asynchronized. So that kind of creates an environment of a lot of flexibility. So for the most part, it doesn't matter where you're at. You have each of those modules, which again are usually structured around 1 week, to do the lecture, to watch the lecture, engage the homework. You can do that in the morning, you can do it at night. You will also be using the platform to work on collaborative assignments, like with your classmates, but you're not going to be engaging with them face-to-face in any way. So as an asynchronized program, there is absolutely no set time that you're ever going to have to meet. Okay, so you're going to work around this platform to get all the work done, to submit things, to download things, watch the lectures, but you have each of those module structures, again, usually 1 week, to facilitate that learning experience. And then the next week, the next module, you move on. Okay. Yes, a question is, oh, that's again you, Nick. So. Any other questions, admissions wise, programmatic? No. There should be tuition info online, so there should be some basics there. If you want a detailed breakdown of each term, I can definitely send that. Reach out to me and I'll definitely send that to you. And of course, if you are Five Branches alumni, make sure that you notify me of that and I'll send you a different version of that. Uh-oh, I did it again.
Okay, well, if there are no other questions, just want to remind everybody that you're encouraged to use the contact info that Tom shared. Okay, again, his email address, admissionsadvisor@fivebranches.edu. And you can always just call Santa Cruz Campus 2 and ask for Tom. So if you even if all you do is you remember Tom's name and you just call our campus, that should be enough to get in touch with him, right?
The only Tom here.
That's correct. And it's only Tom we need, so we're lucky. Thanks again for joining us. I know it's kind of a late evening info session, but we really enjoy being of service to you all and helping those of you for whom this is the right program really get into this program and reap its benefits. So thanks again. Have a wonderful evening, and please reach out if you have any further questions. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.